Ow! Oh! Woo! Shut down!
Welcome to the Paul Pate Podcast. Today we have Subbuteo champion, outstanding gentleman, Zach Walker. Welcome, Zach. Welcome to the podcast. For people that don't know what Subbuteo is, can you tell us what Subbuteo is?
Yeah, well, first off, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, so Subbuteo is a tabletop soccer game that was invented in the 1940s in England. It is nothing like foosball, which is what most people think when they hear tabletop soccer. It is, to me, a combination of paper football, electric football, minus the electricity, of course, chess, and kind of, I've heard tiddlywinks or whatever the game was, where you flick marbles and flick figures. But to me, it's soccer in a miniature version. It's 3D. It's not a computer game, and it's a game that I love and have been playing for coming on almost up on 20 years.
20 years. Wow. How did you get introduced to the game?
Yeah. The first time I ever saw it was we had a British director of coaching for my youth soccer club that I grew up in Minnesota. And he had some team party with all parents and kids, and we went there, and in his basement he had a huge kind of collector's grandstand with the pitch and the figures and all the little, miniature replica trees and the scoreboard. And I was just like, what is this? This is so cool. And my mother ended up buying the first Subbuteo set for my younger brother and I, which was the USA 1994 edition, and gave it to us for Christmas one year. And after that, we were hooked.
Cool. And how did you get to be so good? The reason I asked that is because I feel very fortunate. I live here in Grand Rapids area, and we've got Mike Ewer, Brian Lambert, and Peter Aligi lives about an hour away, and there's a few other guys around that like to play. And so I feel very fortunate, but sometimes it's hard to find a game because there's not that many people that play, which, I can't understand because it's so much fun. But
yeah.
How do you get to be so good? I mean, you're from Minnesota.
I grew up in Minnesota. I live in Denver, Colorado now. So okay. I'm very envious of you all in Michigan. You might not think you have a lot of players, but for American Subbuteo purposes, you have a lot of players.
Yeah.
I don't really have many people to play with at all here in Denver. So, I just fell in love with it instantly, and would force my younger brother. I think I'd threaten to beat him up if he didn't play me, or I'd trade playing him in video games, which he would whoop me at in exchange for playing Subbuteo. And I got some of my friends into it, and then when I was 16, I found out that the National Subbuteo Championships, the American National Championships, were being held in Washington, D.C., and my family and I were going to a church convention in Pittsburgh, of all places. And when I had found out that there was a national championship in D.C., me being the naive 16-year-old growing up in the Midwest, having no concept of the East Coast and geography, I said, "Oh, Mom and Dad, can you just hop us and take us over to D.C. since we'll be out there?" And they obliged, and we went and we played, and I met wonderful people like Greg Deinhardt and Rick Wilcox and Wayne Smith, who are all ASA legends, and just had a blast. And from there, I've been fortunate enough to travel all over the U.S. and even in throughout Europe from my time when I studied and lived in London during college. I got to play in a lot of tournaments over there, and it's just one of those games like anything, like golf, soccer, tennis. The more you play, the better you just naturally get. And I've been playing it pretty regularly for coming up on 20 years, and I don't think I'm that good, I guess, compared to some of the players in Europe, and there's a lot of wonderful players in the U.S. I think I've just been kind of fortunate and lucky, and it's just a great game that for me, I kind of lose track of time when I'm playing it. So
you can find games that Zach has played in on YouTube, and if you Google Subbuteo, Subbuteo, then you will find out about the game. You'll see what we're talking about: little plastic men and the little plastic ball. You flick it around, and a lot of people don't understand that you can play fast. The ball moves, and you don't have to wait for the defense, and you can keep the ball moving, and that can be really exciting. When you get good players that can just move the ball around. I mean, it can be exciting to watch, and it's not exciting to defend.
Yeah, I think when you're first picking up the game, it's very kind of slow. Just like when you're playing any sport or activity, you gotta pick it up and acclimate to the speed.
That's why I wonder how you get so good. Yeah, I take it you practice at home by yourself.
Yeah, not as much. For me, that's kind of boring. I prefer
Yeah,
to,
right.
to play
And
or
there's
train with
nothing.
others.
Yeah, and there's nothing like playing, against somebody that's really good in order to improve your skills. And
Yeah.
so, um, that's why I was, saying, because I know how hard it is to get a game. But you will travel, obviously, will travel anywhere to get in a game, right? Right? Like,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, my wife, thinks I'm nuts, but I guess it's a, better hobby than gambling or smoking or drinking or
yeah,
anything.
right,
So,
right.
I'm fortunate enough to, have a job where I travel. So whenever I'm traveling for work, I always look, okay, is there a Subbuteo player there that
Yeah,
maybe I can
yeah,
sneak away one night to get a game with or two? And that's how I manage to do it a lot. But I try to, take a trip, with personal, vacation at least once a year. And normally that's the national championships or something.
right.
And it's, for me, that's been one of the best parts about playing it for almost 20 years is traveling all the cool places I have, whether it's been LA or Boise, Idaho, or Chattanooga, or I went to a tournament actually in Western Michigan in Muskegon back when I was in college, which you probably didn't know, and a
Hmm.
lot of places I don't know if I would have ever visited if it wasn't for Subbuteo, and not to mention all the places in Europe I've traveled, and so yeah, to me, it's the travel, it's the friendships that you make and the relationships. I consider some of my Subbuteo friends to be some of my best friends in life, and Subbuteo's taking me a lot of cool places and provided me a lot of amazing experiences and memories that I'll cherish, for a long time. So
Yeah, that's cool. You're a great ambassador for the game. I know that, like, anytime
thanks.
on Facebook or on the forums, when there's a new person, you always introduce yourself and try to make them feel welcome, and that's really neat to
Yeah.
see it because it's kind of like Tiger Woods welcoming you to golf.
Have you been drinking some of that Newcastle Brown Ale? Because I am nowhere near Tiger Woods. It's to me, it's kind of just paying it forward. When I, was this very excited 16-year-old before the internet. Well, I think we had just had AOL email,
Yeah,
but the ASA used to have a monthly newsletter that would get mailed out, and man, when that thing arrived in my mailbox, I was so happy to read it front to
yeah,
back over and over multiple times. And one of the first people that kind of welcomed me to the ASA and the Subbuteo community in the U.S. was Wayne Smith out in California,
uh,
and we developed a friendship and kind of pen pal back then. And I just always remembered how much that had a strong impact on me and making me feel welcome and teaching me tips or tricks or clarifying rules or
right.
explaining where I can get equipment. So I try to just kind of pay it forward and do that. And I'm not the
Hmm.
only one who does that. A lot of people do that, and that's one way that I feel I can contribute to the ASA is from my travels and
Hmm.
from knowing a lot of people. I'm able to connect players, whether it be through Facebook or the internet, and say, hey, did you know you're this far from this person, or if you're going
Yeah,
to be in this city, you should meet up. And
yeah.
that's
It's
that's
almost as
something I take pleasure in.
yeah, yeah. It's almost as if you know everybody who is in Subbuteo, and like when if I was traveling to Tucson, Arizona, you'd be like, hey,
Rick
Rick
Rivas.
Rivas,
Yep, he lives in Tucson. He's a
you
Subbuteo
know.
player. So
So there you go.
yeah.
um, that's cool. Now, um, when I was little, I played obsessively electric football, and I
Okay.
loved collecting and painting my own players. And I got a Subbuteo set somehow along the way. And my brother and I played one time, and we didn't play the right way. And I ended up, it just got destroyed or something. And I didn't really learn how to play until a few years ago when I met Mike Ewer,
Hmm.
and who's an English guy that lives here in Grand Rapids, and he's been playing since he was a kid. And then I saw them playing and playing fast, and I was just like, oh man, this is great, and it really replicates the game. But for me, a lot of the fun in it is painting the teams and collecting different teams. Do you have how many Subbuteo teams do you have?
It's funny. I used to get into painting and collecting a little bit. Several years ago, I quickly discovered I am a terrible painter, and for me, that's the beauty of Subbuteo. It can kind of evoke emotion for people in so many different ways. Whether you enjoy playing it, just recreationally with buddies, or if you like it competitively and want to take it, very seriously and travel and go to the Nationals or the World Cup, or if you want to just, collect and you like the aesthetic side of it. Yeah. I actually don't have many teams. I used to, but I have donated a bunch of them to like youth Subbuteo clubs that are popping up over the U.S. just because, that's one of the hardest things in this country is getting, affordable, easy, to use equipment. So I have, I think I have like 4 or 5 teams on, what we'd call pro bases, but
yeah. What is your team? What is the kit?
Yeah, so it's funny. For a while, I just had a bunch of random, chipped and mismatch of colors, and people like Wayne Smith and others would be like, "Why don't you have a nice painted team? You look ridiculous here." Because some people believe that you should, really have a nice looking team. So I finally ponied up some money and have a Fiorentina from Italy team on some Extreme Works bases that a friend of mine, Alex Pataki, down in Tampa Bay, Florida, created for me. And my other team is Sevilla from Spain, which Tim Timonaro, to me, the hands down best painter in the world for Subbuteo from Chicago, made for me. So those are the 2 teams I primarily play with. So
nice. Yeah, Tim. Yeah. I met Tim. He's played here in Grand Rapids, and he's an outstanding man. And I mean, I just kind of go, that's my painting. But
it's a skill.
He's incredible.
Yes, definitely.
So you've mentioned Nationals and the World Cup a couple times. So tell us about the Nationals.
Yeah. So the American Subbuteo Association, which is the governing body for American Subbuteo enthusiasts, we have a national championships every year, and they're going to be held August 9th and 10th. I think that's the date.
8th and 9th.
8th and 9th. Sorry, thank you. Oh, Chris Sweetland's going to yell at me. Saturday and Sunday that weekend in Chicago, a suburb just outside Chicago, and there's going to be, I think, 25 players from, I think, 10 or more different states around the country. We've got guys flying in from LA and Baltimore and Philadelphia, and I'm coming in from Denver, and obviously guys from Michigan and St. Louis and all over. So it's just, to me, the premier weekend for ASA. Not only for playing, but just for camaraderie, meeting new players, and I look forward to that weekend every year, and so that's where we crown the national champions, and it's just going to be a fun weekend. So I don't know if it's ever been in Chicago, so I'm really excited to meet some of the Chicago guys.
Just to clarify, so Saturday the 8th is the Nationals, and I'll also be participating in that one. Yep. And then Sunday is the international tournament.
Yeah. So
I'm not sure I understand the distinction, but
yeah, that's a good question. So the ASA is kind of like the U.S. Soccer Federation, if we're speaking in soccer terms. And then FISTIF, the Federation of International Sports Table Football, is like the FIFA. So we're a member of a governing body. And so the way that it's set up is FISTIF allows its member nations a certain amount of international tournaments that you can have, which garner you international ranking points and international publicity. And so we are holding an international tournament, and there's actually a guy from London who's flying all the way over to play in the tournament, a guy named Colin Terry. And so it's I've participated in quite a few international tournaments, both in the U.S. and over there, but the Saturday will be the national championships, which is open only to Americans, or members of the ASA, rather, I should say. And then Sunday is open to, obviously, all players of all nationalities and whatnot. So, it should be a fun weekend.
Cool. So, are the rules the same in the international and the ASA?
That's a good question. So the ASA, we used to have our own set of ASA-specific rules, but once we became members of FISTIF and started welcoming a lot of foreign players over here and had Americans traveling throughout the world, or Europe primarily playing in tournaments, we wanted to kind of be in line with the rest of the world and how they, play the game, much like soccer. We want to play the game the same way that FIFA does around the world. And so, so the ASA plays according to FISTIF rules,
Okay.
Which is obviously what FISTIF competitions
So
follow.
we're
So,
gonna have 15-minute halves.
yep, correct, 15-minute halves.
Oh.
Yep.
Brutal.
Yeah, tough for the back. So make sure you bring your ibuprofen.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Some top-notch athletes are gonna be popping the ibuprofen this
Yeah.
weekend.
Yeah. We'll have to hire a masseuse or something to give us back rubs at halftime.
Also, too, apparently Friday evening, you can visit the site, which is Step Ahead Sports in Naperville or Bolingbrook, Illinois.
Bolingbrook. Yep.
And get in some games if you want and meet everybody. So that's Friday the 7th.
Yeah, that's pretty common. They normally do friendlies. Everyone is arriving into town. You get to have a bit of social aspect before you put on your competitive mindsets for Saturday morning.
Okay.
Typically do the tournament draw then, so you find out who you've been drawn to in your groups, and kind of the schedule of matches for the next day. And I think we all go out and have some burgers and a couple beers and have some fun. So
great. I really look forward to it. Now my wife is going to come with me, and she can't stand Subbuteo but the funny thing is that she's the one that bought me my first set. Well, it's not when I was a kid, but a few years ago for our first wedding anniversary. She thought it was just a kind of a lark, and she's like, "Oh man, that was the worst move I ever made because now you're obsessed with it." But another thing that she doesn't like is about football, soccer, and is the clock counts up.
Mm-hmm.
And she can't get into that.
Yeah.
That's just the barrier. That's a hurdle for her that she cannot overcome. She says it's un-American. So what do you think about American soccer against world football? How are we doing? What do we got to do?
Yeah, well, I've been an American for 31 years of my life, so to me it is extremely American. But it's my opinion, I guess. I've played soccer competitively my whole life. Traveled around, and that's actually kind of how I got into Subbuteo. I worked in MLS for a few years and was really close to the league, and still have a lot of friends and colleagues that coach and that are really active in professional soccer. And so I'm still a big fan. I have season tickets to the Colorado Rapids here in Denver. I was just watching the U.S. Unfortunate loss tonight to Jamaica in the Gold Cup semis. But I think the U.S. is fantastic, and we're doing really well. And I think it gets a bad rap. But I also think for your mainstream American fans, they do expect a level of excellence that we've grown accustomed to. And I think to some extent, it's a bit unrealistic because soccer is such a different sport than any others that we excel at. But at the same time, I think that level of expectation that we put on ourselves is good because it's exactly what the English and the Germans and the Italians and the French do and the Spanish. They expect them to be competing for trophies year in and year out. And I think that that public kind of push and pressure can be healthy. So I think, I've really enjoyed during my, time on this planet, seeing the growth of the sport, whether it be MLS or the national team and the success. I remember being a ball boy for the Minnesota Thunder back in the A-League, which is now defunct. I think, now you could say it's USL or NASL. So it's just so cool. And I think, as spin-offs in games like FIFA for video games or Subbuteo continue to grow, it just shows how soccer is becoming more ingrained in this culture. And so for us Subbuteo enthusiasts, I think our hobby, our sport, our game has nowhere to go but up because nobody knows about this. If you go to England, it's like saying Monopoly. Everyone thinks it's past its prime, but no one, it's still relatively obscure here.
I'm nationally ranked.
There you go. You should tout that. Yeah. So I think the best is yet to come for American soccer.
Great, that's awesome. I know that, man. Watching my son play, the kids now are awesome.
Yeah.
They have some great games. So I think it's the only way to go is up.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
it's a little frustrating sometimes to watch, for me to watch some of the teams play kickball, but and we don't, as parents, we don't understand the game, but
Yeah.
there's some great, just this the increase of the popularity of the game is helping with that, I think, tremendously. We're trajectory is up. So and
Yeah, well, I'm a millennial, so I'm of a generation that has definitely grown up with the game, and I think with
yeah,
every passing generation, it just gets more ingrained into the culture. So I will admit I was a soccer snob for a while and was said, oh, if you haven't played it your whole life, then don't talk to me. But to me, that was a very ineffective way of growing the beautiful game and spreading it.
yeah,
And so I love talking about the game with people who have played it their whole lives or those who are just picking it up and getting into it, because to me, the more the merrier. So
yeah. I've noticed there's a lot of where I play. There's a lot of older European guys or American guys that have played their whole life, and you can tell by the way they play, that they've played when they were a kid. And then there's me, who, I'm looking down and really cumbersome with the ball, but they're very welcoming and open, because they want to spread the game. So
that's great.
and
That's
it's
great.
a great
That's
game
great.
too, for a wide range of skills, as long
Yeah.
as nobody's getting kicked in the shins. So,
Yeah, it's funny. I have a men's league game tonight in a couple hours. It's an 11 o'clock kickoff.
Oh,
Ugh, late.
goodness.
But we were playing in the over 30 league and just switched to the open league, where we're playing against 18, 19, 20-year-olds, and it's fun. But I don't know what we're doing. I think we need to go back to the older league and slow the pace down a bit. So I hear you, looking down and whatnot.
All right, man. It's been great talking to you. Thanks for coming on. Now, at the end of the the end of the Paul Pate podcast, every show, I put the guest on a deserted island,
Okay.
and you get we do kind of a rapid fire questions. So
Okay.
you get to pick one item of this list of items that you're going to take with you on a deserted island.
Okay.
Okay, and so the first item is a dessert. You get one dessert that you're going to take onto a deserted island. What would it be?
Oh, my grandmother's recipe, spice cake with pinoche frosting. I have it every year for my birthday.
Good answer. Good answer. Very decisive on that one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, one professional athlete.
One professional athlete. Do they have to be living?
No rules.
No rules. Okay. Oh man. You know what? Actually, I would go with Diego Maradona. I think that guy would just be a hoot to hang out with. So, and seeing that there wouldn't be a lot of stuff to get into trouble with on an island, I think would be safe.
Right. Good answer. Awesome. Okay, one book.
One book. How Soccer Explains the World.
Good. Good. Who's that by? Can you?
I knew you were gonna ask that.
That's okay.
I don't remember, but it's a phenomenal book. So,
because have you met Peter Alegi?
not in person yet. I'll meet him in Chicago, but
Yeah.
we've spoken many times.
Oh, awesome. He, as you know, he's a soccer professor,
Mhm.
and I was telling people that soccer professor. How do you get that job? And he's written a book about African soccer. So
Yeah, not a bad gig.
right, awesome. One band,
One band.
a musical act.
The Who.
The Who. Good.
Yeah.
And then lastly, one tool from your tool shed, garage, or basement.
Oh, that's really funny that you asked that, because I am probably the least handy person you'll ever meet. So the one tool that I do use the most is the power drill, the electric drill. So I would say that, but I am not a handy guy. So
But you're gonna take the power drill out on
the power drill, yeah.
Diego Maradona is gonna say, "Dude, what? We can't use
You're right.
this."
that could get a little out of hand with him, so maybe I shouldn't bring that. So.
All right, Zach Walker, thanks for coming on and talking about Sabudio and soccer and Deserted Island and grandmother's dessert. It's been fun, man.
Yes, thank you.
I look forward to meeting you and getting crushed.
We'll have a good time. So
Yeah.
we'll see you in a couple weeks in Chicago.
All right.